Stellenbosch University Center for Sustainability Transitions co-director, Professor Swilling, says widening inequality is just one of the problems that the 7th administration needs to address. In an article published in the Daily Maverick, he says the country is failing to build a middle-class society. Swilling joins us now for more on that. Prof, good evening. Good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Evening.
For the first time in a long time, left-wing ANC, others are saying, will be partnering with opponents from the center-right or the right, whichever way you want to look at it. What really lies ahead, and how will this work?
Well, the fact of the matter is, as I argue in the article, the majority voted for the ANC tradition. And that tradition incorporates the ANC, the MKP, and EFF. But those who wanted that alliance to be the governing alliance have been disappointed. And so politically, there's been a shift more to the right. But that probably doesn't affect fundamentally what needs to be addressed. And in particular, it seems like a lot of the initiatives from the previous administration are going to be allowed to continue. And some of those are extremely important: the energy action plan, the logistics roadmap, the water strategy, and various other initiatives are most likely going to be able to continue. But what really matters is going to be public service reform. Will it be possible to see the public service reform bill come all the way through, not just the National Assembly, which it's gone through, it's been adopted, but the NCOP, and then signing by the president? That is the most significant and fundamental restructuring of the state since 1994. And has the promise of a professional public service. And that's critical if we want to address the challenges of the future.
Will we once and for all tackle inequality? You paint a couple of scenarios. If that doesn't happen, what would certainly happen in terms of how society will react when we begin to have tolerance for poverty, quest for certainty, and a decline in the belief that losers stand a chance of winning again. But do you think a government of national unity is what it will take to address what the president highlighted in his speech as deep inequality? He says, unless we address deep inequalities, this coalition could be unstable.
Yes, I was quite struck by the number of times that inequality was referred to in the inaugural speech today. What I essentially argued is that globally, what we are seeing is a widening of inequalities. The super rich are getting richer, and the poor are getting poorer. And there's a massive transfer of resources globally from the global middle class to the super rich. And the global middle class is becoming more and more fragile, more uncertain, and are starting to vote for populists who promise certainty. And in the South African context, you would have expected something similar. So we did see a significant shift of voter support away from the ANC to a populist party like MKP that has promised a return to the liberation movement promise, as well as various other seemingly radical statements about change. And that was clearly appealing to some who felt that they were losing out and they were not going to be able to see a future if the ANC continued to govern. But what we've ended up with is a new center of gravity, which is a coalition between several different parties, two major parties. And unlike many places in other parts of the world, there's 50 countries around the world that are going to be voting this year. The kind of populist promise didn't, in the end, sway a sufficient number of voters for the MKP to be able to form a government.
Do you think the message from the left is going to to diminish, as it were, as some others are saying, that words like workers' rights, words like welfare or social grants, words like redistribution, especially when it comes to land, are going to disappear in the lexicon of this government of national unity?
I don't think that's going to happen. The COSATU and the trade unions remain strong. You still have the SACP in alliance with the ANC. I don't think you're going to see a disappearance of that kind of narrative, especially given that we are the most unequal society in the world, and those issues have to be addressed. If they're not, in a sense, civil society is going to rise up and articulate those narratives in a very forceful way. But I mean, you refer to the left. It's really difficult now in terms of the current spectrum to identify actually who is on the left. Clearly, the unions, SACP, a whole bunch of civil society are on the left, but I don't think it is appropriate to define the MKP and the EFF on the left just because they have a radical left ideology. One has to look at programmatic and institutional agendas in order to understand how these ideas get translated into practice. If those are just to whip up popular support for a populist leader that gets fused with the interests of the people in the name of reclaiming a liberation movement promise, that in and of itself is insufficient to define them as left parties.
A government of national unity that leaves out those two parties, is it likely going to find itself with violence in its hands?
Well, that was my big fear until the MKP press conference, where there was a crucial sentence which wasn't really reported on or commented on, which was when the speech read out for Mr. Zuma referred to using all means necessary to fight the Ramaphosa-led ANC DA coalition government, as they called it, because they don't like using the word government of national unity. But as soon as that sentence was said, the next sentence is what really mattered, within the law. And I think that's if they really do mean that, that really does pull us away from the brink of violence. Because, as I argue in the article, it's not inconceivable that Zuma is contemplating a KZN-based armed struggle. And at the end of the speech, he did refer to the statement in the founding of Umkhonto weSizwe, the original Umkhonto weSizwe, 1961, where there was reference to there comes a time in a nation where you submit or fight. And Umkhonto's statement was, we're going to fight. But what they meant was the armed struggle. So some people might interpret that to refer to it's time to go back to the armed struggle, but time will tell. We don't really know exactly how it's going to pan out. What we do know is that they've decided to come into Parliament, which is in a sense to participate in the constitutional order. They did say by all means possible, but within the law, which is a good thing. So the optimistic reading is we pulled back from the brink of violence. The pessimistic reading is that there's going to be an underhand catalyzation of various forms of violence to undermine the existing order. After all, the MKP is of the view that the election was rigged.
Prof, much appreciated. Thank you very much for your time.